everybody say precipice of possibility. Right, you're there, it's possibility. So in preparing for today, I wrote down some thoughts on how the average agent thinks. Now, do we have any average agents in this room? No, okay. And for those that don't know the answer to that question, it is no. No would be the right answer to write down on your paper. We don't. These observations are based on my thousands and thousands of coaching calls. I'm not near what Monica has. That is my goal one day, to have as many coaching calls as Monica does. So here's what I came up with. The average agent, well, they're probably doing things the hard way. They're taking things that are very simple and doing them the hard way. They think they have to be a hard closer. I've got to go in and close it. I got to sell it. Or they have to be super, super slick and salesy. Or that sales can't come easily. And here's the great news. When you say the right thing in the right way at the right time, conversations will be easier, life will be easier, people will be more easily moved forward towards the great decisions because of you and the conversations you have with them. So let's start by talking about the definition of rapport, okay? So I'm going to go into my reporter voice here. Rapport, when two people have a good, synchronized, trusting, and safe and connected relationship in which they are able to understand each other's needs, ideas, and feelings. That's from like dictionary.com or something. Rapport, it's a connection, right? It's a connection. So in other words, when you're in good rapport with a person, they trust what you do and do what you ask. They don't hesitate to share information because they trust you as a person. One of the most consistent themes that Gary Keller will talk about in his masterminds is how important it is to build a community, to link arms with people. Rapport helps you build your community. It helps you strengthen your community. The goal of rapport is this: to cause clients to feel comfortable with you and your recommendations, to cause others to act and share because they can relate and trust you. Well, to list and sell more homes in less time with less resistance, who wouldn't want that? And to take your career to the next level through relating to others easily. The ultimate goal is to live a better life because communication is just easier. So there's research that supports the theory that the language you speak largely affects and may even determine the way you actually experience the world. So from the way you perceive what's happening to the way you think and react to it, it's creating your world. Your language is literally creating your world, so it doesn't make sense. Doesn't it make sense?
Hey.
Hi.
1, 2.
It works. So I'm hearing voices in my head. Okay. All right. So, and we're back. Your language is literally creating your world, and sometimes you hear voices from beyond. So doesn't it make sense that it can create a new or different world for your listener as well? Right? Language can do that. So take a moment and envision what your life will look like when you are communicating more powerfully and moving forward and moving people towards their goals even faster. And when people anchor strong feelings of positivity to you, wow, what type of ripple effect could that have on your business? Because again, people like, trust, and refer people that make them feel good. People like to feel good. Who likes to feel good? Say me. All right, good. So remember this. Your language literally creates your world. And if that's true, which it appears to be, wouldn't it also mean that language can create an impact on the people around us? I mean, can't our language impact their outcome too? And with that being said, think about the last book you read. Now, I'm not talking about a great book like the MREA. I'm talking about a novel. Something that you read really just for story, okay? So think about that, and maybe that book had an impact on you. A book, as you already know, is made up of a series of words. I mean, it's literally black ink on white paper. That's all it is. And yet, as you read the words, they created this mental image in your mind made up of sight and sound and feelings. It's like a movie's playing in your mind while you're reading the book. That image or movie in your mind is what we call an internal representation. And we're going to talk about internal representations for a little bit here. Your internal representation is unique to you. Everyone has their own internal representations. So, has there ever been a time, let's stick with the book thing for a few minutes here. Has there ever been a time you read a book and you absolutely loved it? I mean, you love that book. And then and you got all excited because they were going to make it into a movie. And then you went and saw the movie and you were like, yeah, wah, wah, wah. That's exactly what we're discussing here. This is because your personal internal representation of the book, of that black and white, those black words on white paper, your personal internal representation of the characters, the locations, etc., they didn't align with the filmmakers. The filmmaker had a different internal representation of what that was going to be. So let's do a little experiment here. So just get comfortable. We're not going to do anything physical, no more exercise, I promise you. Maybe. At least for the next 5 minutes. So take a moment, and now what I'm going to ask for here too is complete silence. We're going to get back to that shh moment, okay? So, because you're going to be tempted to chat with your neighbor, don't do it. Don't do it. So take a moment right now and think about the color blue. Just picture the color blue in your mind. Some people are really good at visualizing by staring off. Others would like to close their eyes. If you're an eye closer, go ahead and close them. Don't touch your neighbors. Just picture blue. Now, picture a blue shirt. Now, picture a blue collared shirt. And now that you've got that blue collared shirt, picture a blue collared short sleeve shirt. Now picture a blue collared short sleeve shirt made of cotton. And now picture a baby blue short sleeved polo style cotton shirt. Okay, got it? Who's picturing the same shirt? Now you can talk. Who's picturing the same shirt? I don't know, right? You may all be. What are the chances of that, though? Very, very slim, right? However, the chances did get better the more description I gave, the layers that I added. The more I gave you, the more information I gave you about what I actually wanted you to concentrate on. Some of you may have been thinking of the exact same shirt. You know what? We'll never know, will we? We will never know. Seriously, though, how many times did your internal representation shift with what I was saying? If you were playing along based on what I said, it was most likely 6 to 7 times. That quickly. Because just out of curiosity, did anybody start out thinking about a light blue short sleeve polo style cotton shirt? I mean, that would be amazing. We've got 1, 2. Awesome. You guys compare notes at the break and see if it's the same shirt. But think about this. Some blues were light, some were dark, some were yellow blues, some were blue reds. Whichever it was for you, it was exactly right and comfortable for who? For you, exactly. Now, so I think you're now understanding how words can lead someone in a specific direction, just like I did with you, right? I helped craft your internal representation the more specific I became. And internal representations are important because they actually can create emotion in people. Now, I'm not thinking that you got all emotional over the blue shirt. That's not what we're talking about here. And yet, as you use your language, you create an internal representation in the listener's mind. And here are some important things to remember. An internal representation creates a state, which is how someone feels. It's how someone feels. And then that feeling triggers a physiological reflex, which is how they respond to it. The body actually responds, physiological. And then at the end, a behavior is created. So we have a thought, which leads to a feeling. The body responds, action, and a behavior is created. And when you practice and master the techniques that I'm about to share, you impact your listeners' internal representation, which impacts their state and physiology, which in turn impacts their what? Everybody say behavior. Behavior, exactly. You guys are so smart. So the more you practice these things, the more you can impact people in your presence. And when people are empowered in your presence, well, they're going to anchor those feelings of empowerment to who? You, right. So how would you like them to anchor feelings of empowerment to you? Yes? No? Some of you are, I'm not really sure. I'm going to see where this is going. Okay. So, no, you want them to do that. You want them to anchor those feelings to you. So think about this for a minute. When people anchor strong feelings of positivity to you, what's that ripple effect that it could have, right? Because we've already said people like, trust, and refer people who make them feel good. Like, trust, and refer people who make them feel good. Business could be so much easier. So simply put, internal representations help us understand how someone else is seeing the world. It's their view. It's the picture they have in their mind. And when we're talking about our clients and moving them forward, well, it's all about them. It's all about them. Look at your neighbor, because this is very important as we go through today, and you tell them it's all about them. It is. So you may be wondering a little bit where some of these techniques come from, and they're based on neuro-linguistic programming, or what's commonly referred to as NLP. So we're going to go ahead and just take a moment and break that down so that you don't think it's some kind of voodoo magic or something like that. Neuro-linguistic programming is this. Neuro is what we think, brain, right? Neuro. Linguistic is what we say, and that is both verbally and non-verbally, body language, and then programming, what we do. So NLP is literally the study of what we think, say, and do. It's a method of influencing brain behavior, the neuro part of the phrase, through the language we use, the linguistic part, and other types of communication to enable the listener, to actually recode how the brain responds to stimuli, and that's the programming, and manifest new and different behaviors and outcomes. So that's a lot of big words to say. Your words can influence how people think, and when they influence how people think, their behavior can change. They'll take action. So have you ever noticed that some people naturally have people listen to them at a higher level or a deeper level? You know, those people who literally, it's like, man, they've never met a stranger. They seem to be instant best friends with everyone, right? Doesn't it seem like they're blessed with some sort of secret power? Like they're a Jedi from Star Wars and they have the Force. I am the salesperson you're looking for. I've been practicing that. It's getting better. My Yoda's getting better. So it's not magic. It's not a superpower. Most likely they're using some sort of a proven communication technique and the things that I'm going to share with you today. They know how to communicate with people in a way that causes the listener to feel good about making a decision and to be right about taking action on that decision. So there's one more thing that's really important that I need to make absolutely positively clear, because I know there's a handful of you in here that are thinking this right now. Using elevated language skills is not manipulation. Hear that loud and clear. The definition of manipulation is exerting shrewd and devious influence, especially for one's own advantage. We're not doing this for us, we're doing it for the listener, the client, our family member, whoever. We're not using the power of these newfound techniques for the dark side. We're talking about choosing to become more effective in your language so that you can make an impact on your listener and empower them to take action towards their goals through you. Does that make sense? Say yes. All right, so it's about building a stronger connection with people in a way that causes them to get into action towards their goals instead of procrastinating. And it causes them to choose you because you're a force for good. And you desire to help them get what they want. And when they get what they want, you automatically get the residual effect as you get what you want. So what I'm going to ask you to consider is to focus on understanding, thinking, and internalizing language patterns that are going to allow you, the speaker in the conversation, to move your listener, whether it's a client, whether it's a team member, whether it's a spouse, a child, or really anyone, to move them powerfully in the direction of their desire. The use of language patterns is always meant to move the listener forward. Move the listener forward. In reaching his or her goals and objectives, it's influencing the listener, and it's important to remember it's always about the listener. Always about the listener. So you do realize that everyone has influence, right? Right? Does everyone get that? Let me see a few heads. Back row, heads moving. Yep. Okay, good. In conversations that you're involved in, are you a positive influence or a negative influence? Well, maybe it depends on the circumstance, right? Maybe it depends. For instance, I definitely have some influence when talking about language patterns and communications. However, if you ask me how to prepare a gourmet meal, I have no clue what to do. So, other than make reservations. So consider what best-selling author John Maxwell states in his book, Becoming a Person of Influence. Influence doesn't come to us instantaneously. It grows in stages. It grows in stages. The more I told you to think about that blue shirt, the more we were in alignment on our thinking and the more rapport we felt. Every new internal representation was a deeper stage of connection. Now, automatically, I can tell, you're sensing that building trust is at the foundation of a great relationship. You've got to have trust. It's important that we build trust. You build trust with your clients, and, well, you allow them to believe what you say, just as you get to believe what I say as I'm up here. One way to have people trust you is to have people feel understood. We do this with a dual part language technique we call acknowledging and validating. Everybody say acknowledging and validating. All right, good. You guys are still here. We're tracking. So acknowledging. You may want to write that word down. Acknowledging. It's simply restating what you thought you heard them say. Restating what you thought you heard them say. So phrases that we're going to use to acknowledge would be things like, what I'm hearing you say is, or it sounds like. In other words, what you're telling me is, so you're saying, or what I hear you telling me. Acknowledging allows the listener to know that you heard them. Acknowledging is hearing. Acknowledging is hearing. And then when you finish acknowledging, you move forward with part 2, which is validating. Validating. So validating allows the speaker to feel understood. Understood. That's the key. Acknowledging, I hear you. Validating, I understand you. And it's so important that we use these together because validating has one huge purpose, and it's to get someone to neutral. It's to help them stabilize their feelings in a conversation. So remember this, you're not agreeing with them when you're validating. You're not agreeing with them, and you're also not judging them. Okay? It's simply letting the speaker know that you understand things from whose perspective? their perspective, right? Whatever they're feeling is absolutely okay. So examples of validating include, it's understandable that. It's perfectly normal when. Well, no wonder you feel. You have every right to think. It makes sense that. Now, write this down, because I know a lot of you have been taking notes and you wrote down the acknowledge and validating. We always acknowledge and validate together. Always, always, always. That's where the power lies. That's where the power lies. They go hand in hand. It may be, again, easiest to say that when we acknowledge it, we're saying, I hear you. Validating means I understand you. So consider what we're actually doing here with our language is bringing the listener from a certain state, right, what they're thinking, negative or positive, to neutral. And then we can move them forward to their goals. Think about driving a manual or stick shift car. Has anybody ever done that? Yeah? I've never done it, so I'm faking it up here. I'm too lazy to learn how to do that. So think about this, though. If you're in reverse, can you go from reverse right to forward, right to drive? No. What do you have to pass through? Neutral. Guess what? Your brain is the same way. You can't go from a negative space to a positive space just like that. It literally got to stop in neutral. Now, it might happen in a flash, might take a little longer. Our brain is the same way. So think of these phrases. It's understandable. It's normal. No wonder you feel. What word is missing? The missing word is actually one simple letter. I. We get the listener to neutral by keeping this about them. And if we use an I statement, I understand. I think it's normal when. Well, I agree. When we do that, we've invalidated and now we've made it about who? You. And think about this. It doesn't take them to neutral because now they've rallied the troops. Whatever they're feeling, now they've got people locking arms with them and going, yeah, my price is right. No. So we want to get them to neutral. So remember, it's important. I hear you, I understand you. They go to salt and pepper, ham and cheese, bacon and eggs, all those kind of things. So here's an example. Here's a practical example that I want you to hear. And I think most people can relate to this because, does anybody have kids in the room? Was anybody ever been around a kid? Anybody was a kid? All right. Child. All right, so a child stomps their foot and says, that's not fair. Right? And if you're a parent in your mind, you're like, right, it's not fair because I'm the parent, you're the child, and you're going to listen to me. And we might have responded to that way in the past, and yet what's just happened is we've rounded the corner on two wheels and driven right into frustration city with a reservation for two. I mean, who wins in that situation? No one. And you're probably going, well, eventually I would as the parent, and there'd be a lot of frustration. So let's rewind that. A child stomps their foot and says, that's not fair. And this time you're enlightened. And you remember your favorite session at family reunion, and that cool chick who taught you how to empower people with words. And this time you acknowledge and validate the child simply by saying, I hear you saying that's not fair, and it makes sense you would feel that way. Did you feel the energy shift in the room? That's just it, acknowledged and validated. It shifts the energy just like that. Because how do they argue with that? They can't. They can't argue with that. And now you're at neutral. You're not agreeing. You're simply hearing and stating that you can comprehend what's causing them to feel that certain way. And all of a sudden, the child pauses, and unconsciously his or her brain says, Mommy understands me. And the child feels safe, and their brain is moving to that neutral spot. And remember, when we're in a negative space, we can't move forward till we get through that neutral, so it's all about getting them to neutral. Maybe you have a seller that's a little resistant on pricing, right? You know the price that it's going to cause it to sell, and they're, dead set on a different price. So what you might say something like this is, what I'm hearing you say is that you're frustrated with the potential listing price. And it's understandable with all the great updates you've made to the property. So think about that. We heard them. I hear that you're frustrated. And I understand because you've done all this work. Did I agree with them? No. I just told them I see things from their perspective. So how about an example of a buyer who doesn't want to make an offer on a house? In other words, you're saying that this isn't the right house for your family, and you have every right to feel that way. Acknowledge, validate. We're not making them wrong. So I'm sensing that y'all are beginning to understand how using acknowledging and validating helps the listener get back to a neutral place, and what a powerful communication technique it could be. It's actually very simple, right? You probably do some of this already. You've heard it somewhere and you've started emulating it. You probably acknowledge, and what's missing is the validating. That's the power in this. This acknowledging and validating, huge step in having influence. So I have a question for you, and we're going to do a little informal poll here, okay? I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to, and be quiet, because this is going to be one of these. We're going to raise hands again. Not quite the exercise, however, sort of. So in what type of communication do you believe acknowledging and validating is effective, verbal or written? So let's do this. All of you, when I say go, all of you who think it's verbal, raise your right arm up high. And then all of you who think it's written, raise your left hand up, okay? So if you think it's verbal, right hand, written, left hand, okay? Go. Okay, all I see are a bunch of hands, and I'm just making sure you're awake. So seriously, I saw a bunch of hands, but guess what? You're all right. It's effective all the time. It's both. Think back to this. Maybe this has never happened to you. I tend to be a little pragmatic in my speech. And if you're anything like me, maybe you've sent a text or an email to someone, and you were just doing it quick. You just shot it off really, really quick. And that person perceived it as confrontational, or you had an attitude, right? Am I the only person that's happened to? Say no. Okay, good. I mean, did you really have an attitude at that moment? Or were you just being direct or quick, efficient, and yet their internal representation set off some alarms of the last time they had gotten some texts or emails like that, and now they're thinking that's just like the last time, and why are you so mean? Why do you have to have such an attitude? So think about this. Acknowledging and validating is effective in any form. Text, email, verbally in a conversation. Super powerful. Remember, it gets the listener or the reader, if you're using it in written form, to neutral so that they can stay there and move forward in a positive direction. Now, how many of you are curiously wondering, Kara, what do we say after we acknowledge and validate? Well, the follow-up is simple. We ask powerful questions. We just ask some powerful questions. And that's powerful questions with capital P, capital Q. So powerful questions are not just any questions, because those would be, they would be just questions. It wouldn't be powerful questions. Powerful questions are the superheroes of questions. They have the cape, they have the tights, they have the whole, all that in a bag of chips. They give us insight because they get other people in the conversation speaking. And by answering questions that actually make them have to think, they give us a peek into that person's internal representation, right? What we talked about earlier. So they think, and they actually put thought behind their answers, and then they start to respond, and they don't give us what we would call a conditioned habitual response. Conditioned habitual response. What does that mean? Well, you realize that many times we answer a question, and what shows up is a standard answer for us. It's habit. Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Ooh, you didn't think about that, and you probably didn't mean it. It was a conditioned habitual response. So here's another example. This happened to me recently. Walk into a department store, the clothing store, and the salesperson politely greets you, "Welcome to Nordstrom. Is there something special I can help you find today?" And without even blinking or thinking, my answer was, "No, thank you, just looking." Like, seriously, how does that even make sense? I was absolutely walking into that store to find a certain department, to find a certain thing, and I told them, "No, get away from me." It doesn't make sense. It was a habit. So we all have habitual vocabulary, habitual phrases, habitual things that just come out of us. So in order to have the highest level of communication with the listener, whether they're a client, friend, family member, team member, colleague, asking powerful questions is a way to have deeper conversations. And to understand that better, well, we're first going to talk about what's not a powerful question. What's not a powerful question? Now, most of you are taking notes, or you have a piece of paper nearby. So I'm going to give you a word to write down and leave a little space above it and a little space below it, okay? Are you ready? I'm going to spell it for you. W, H, Y. So now, you've got that word, look at it, draw a circle around it, and then draw one of those cool slash marks. So it kind of looks like the no smoking sign, like slash mark right through the circle. Yep. Questions that start with the word why, they are not powerful questions. And there's two main reasons. Well, for the first part, most of us, we were talking about habitual programmed language, right? We've been programmed that the answer to any why question, or maybe this was just in my house, was because. Right? Why? Because, or because I said so, right? I mean, which is really the responder's habitual way of not having to think or defend their answer. They're just shutting you down. They're like, "I don't want to deal with this because," right? So when you ask a why question, everybody has a why answer program. So there's that. The second is when you ask a why question, your listener is most likely to become defensive internally. Yep. It's going to happen. So we're going to do a little experiment. Everybody has someone sitting next to them, right? So pick a partner right now. Pick a neighbor next to you. Doesn't matter which side, just pick someone. And when I say go, you're going to ask all right, so everybody has their partner. Now, look at the person who has the longer hair. They're going to be the one that asks the question. Okay? Okay, focus up here for a sec. So, long-haired, freaky people, you're going to ask your neighbor this question. Why did you pick that to wear today? Go. All right, shh. You see what I mean? No matter how you ask it, there's a rub or friction, right? And friction over time causes damage. No matter how you ask a why question, there's rub or friction. Friction over time causes damage. I really think, and this is important, especially in our KW culture, I really think that this is why I hear, as a coach and just in general, I hear so many people struggling to find their big why, right? Their big why. It's because internally, your brain, why is confrontational, and the unconscious mind's job is to keep you safe and secure and comfortable. So it just builds this mental insulation around that word and around our thinking that actually prevents us from finding the real thing you're looking to define, and that is purpose. It's purpose. It's not a big why, it's a big purpose. Now, I'm not Simon Sinek. He wrote the book about finding your why. I might have to write one about finding your purpose. Might sound like his, only we substitute the word, okay? Well, thank you. Thank you. That'll be 3,000 copies for this room. So, so for these reasons, can we all recognize and agree that asking a why question isn't going to give us a further peek into someone's internal representation, into their thoughts or a particular subject? No. So think about this. In the simplest form, the word why makes us justify our behavior. Think about the little child who doesn't like the answer they've been given. What question do they keep asking? Incessantly. Why? 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 And they keep asking it over and over and over again until finally you wear down and then you just give them what they want. No, there's friction. Asking why questions doesn't make us think in a forward direction. It actually makes us think in a backward direction. Now, there is one perfect time to use a why question. Y'all want to hear what that is? They're really great questions if you want to start a fight. That's simple. That's simple. Why'd you do that? Why do you think that? Why are you saying that? I mean, did your representations just shift based on what I had taught you a few moments ago? I mean, seriously, I have a hard time reading those sentences because they feel abrasive to me. They feel abrasive. It's confrontational in my head. Why questions are weak. They're weak. And you're looking to build a relationship or getting someone to move forward. Well, we want to use powerful questions, not weak questions. So let's just avoid it. And now that we know what they aren't, let's take a look at what they are. They are open-ended. Open-ended means you can't answer it with a yes or a no. Open-ended. They're thought-provoking. Thought-provoking. They cause the listener to think, not give a habitual answer. They're clarity-seeking. They show that you've been listening or that you're interested. And they're solution-oriented or forward-facing, forward-looking. So powerful questions cause the listener to search for answers and choices. And they begin with words like this: who, what, where, when, how. Who, what, where, when, how. Or simple phrases like, tell me more, or say more about that. Who, what, where, when, how. So remember, all powerful questions are open-ended. However, not all open-ended questions are powerful. So here are some examples. How does that fit into your plan? You don't want to make an offer? How does that fit into your plan? Or what's the outcome that you're actually looking to achieve? Instead of, why won't you do that? Why won't you list at this price? Well, what's the outcome you're actually looking to achieve? Because now I'm looking for greater understanding, right? Or when would it make sense to have that conversation? And you can never go wrong with the simple, tell me more about that. Or say more about that. Let the person talk. So now let's put acknowledging, validating, powerful questions all together so that you can hear how it flows, okay? So let's go back to that little child example again. The child says to you, that's not fair. And you acknowledge and validate them by saying, I hear you saying it's not fair, and that makes sense that you would feel that way. Tell me what you believe is fair for both of us, knowing that your room needs to be cleaned and you want to go out and play with your friends. Okay, is there a mic? That's a mic drop moment, right? Right? Because now as a parent in that conversation, you've just achieved what you need to. You put it back on them to go, I guess I do want to go play with my friends. Okay. So think about what I just said, and I'm going to repeat it. I want you to listen to the steps. I hear you saying it's not fair, and it makes sense you would feel that way. Tell me what you believe is fair for both of us, knowing that your room needs to be cleaned and you want to go out and play with your friends. How much easier will negotiating with sellers be when you acknowledge, validate, and ask powerful questions? A little bit? A lot of bit? I mean, if you can diffuse an 8-year-old terrorist who doesn't want to clean their room, I mean, what could it do for your clients? Right? So notice that I said powerful questions, plural, with an S at the end. Seldom do we receive all the information we need when we're just asking one powerful question. You've heard the phrase, go 3 deep? Well, you might have to ask several powerful questions that are layered on. And that way you get an insight and a peek into the other person's what? What do we start out by talking about today? Their internal representation, right? They're thinking. So here's the example of a seller giving resistance on pricing. What I'm hearing you say is you're frustrated with a potential listing price. Well, and it's understandable with all the amazing updates you've made to the property. How do you believe a buyer would perceive that price based on the comparable sales we just reviewed? Did I tell them they were wrong? No. And yet I got them to do what? Think. I asked them a how question, not why do you want to price it there? Why do you want to price it there? Nobody's going to buy it. How do you believe a buyer would perceive, right? What did we just do with our language? We told the seller we hear them, we understand them, and that what would the buyer think of that price? Now, again, very important, we didn't make anybody wrong. We simply asked them to look at things through a different lens, a different perspective, through a powerful question. So, one last example on this. For a buyer who doesn't want to buy this house, and it checks every box. You know this is the perfect house for them. And you say to them, in other words, you're saying this isn't the right house for you and your family, and you have every right to feel that way. Remind me, though, what's going to happen if we're not under contract on that new home by the 1st? That was a what question. So as you can clearly see, acknowledging, validating, and asking powerful questions, well, they're the key components to moving the listener forward. And we're moving them forward towards whose goals? Their goals. Everybody say their goals. So consider that even in this day of texting, emailing, social media interaction, that you can still add a lot to your bottom line, making connections with the people that you meet just living your normal life. And at group activities like your kids' sports or even your open houses, or what do you call them? Show houses. Yes, I love that. The method I'm going to teach you works extremely well. And like most things in life, the more you use it, the better your results are going to be. So one other thing, this is where you really have to get uncomfortable, or comfortable being uncomfortable. A lot of discomfort until you start to master it. So it requires you to put aside your normal way of being, what you would normally do, your natural communication style, maybe that you've used your entire life. It's this many days old, just like you are. So it may feel unnatural. So you're going to have to be okay with being a little humbled and a little nervous because it's a little different. So here we go. You meet someone and you want to initiate a real estate contract, because don't we want to do that with everyone? Say yes. Yes. Your goal is to connect with that person and meet in a way so that they remember, and feel connected to you. And if they're not ready to buy or sell at this very, very, very moment, well, you want to give them your contact information, right? So I'm going to start by telling you the what, and then we're going to talk about the how. So here's the what. We're going to pay close attention to their model of the world. We're going to respect and connect with them based on their model of the world. And we're going to follow until rapport is built, and then we're going to lead based on a strong connection. Okay. That's a lot of words. I'm going to demonstrate it, and you're going to go, oh, that's what she's talking about. So when you meet someone, instead of insisting that they be like you, you're going to be like them. People relate to people like them. They like people like them. They trust people like them. And they enjoy interactions with people like them. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to be like them. Say, be like them. Right. So what if the first time you met someone, they felt so comfortable and you had a great conversation, then you heard them even repeating that conversation? What if you're talking to them in the shopping line and they actually, wait for you and you walk out to the car together afterwards because you were having such a great conversation? That is connection. So first, paying attention to their model of the world. You bump into someone in line, you make eye contact. You smile, you make a comment about something you observe, and you start a conversation. Right? This actually happened to me several months ago in the Austin airport when I was coming back from Mega Leadership Camp. I was standing in line to get on the plane, and I noticed the lady next to me had these great shoes. I mean, they were super comfy looking. And as someone who's a speaker and on my feet a lot, comfy shoes, they're the bomb. She glanced at me and I said, I love your shoes. Are they as comfortable as they look? And she replied that they were, and they were perfect for work. Like ding, 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 ding. So of course, I asked her what she did for work, which led her to asking, what did I do? Exactly. And through the 5-minute conversation, I found out what she did, that she was flying home to see her family. She mentioned her elderly mother was going to have to be making a move, and this is why she was going home, to start to do the initial assessment, and that living 1,000 miles away, she needed a good real estate professional she could trust. I like your shoes. Listing, exactly. Right. Instant rapport was there because of a shared interest, comfy shoes, and in addition to a database was made. Now, you may not connect on comfy shoes. However, there's always something to connect on. Remember that. Now, stay with me here. You're going to respond to them with the same tone, with the same rate of speech, with their body language and their face. I know it's a lot. Now, remember this, though. So pay attention here. You're going to lead, and they're going to follow. So how are they standing? Are they leaning? Are they slouching? Whatever. So I'm going to take that same example, and I'm going to tell you exactly what helped to build the rapport while we were talking. She had a roller bag. I had a roller bag. She was holding her roller bag. She had a secondary bag that she was holding. I just gently took my shoulder bag down, put it on top, and without her even noticing, was now standing exactly like she was. And her foot was out like this, my foot was out like this, and I had my bag like this. And then all of a sudden, I kind of stepped back, turned, and leaned. And guess what she did? Same thing. That's when you know you're in rapport. That's how people feel comfortable with you. Wait until you see this work in real life. One last example, and you can all relate to this, because you're probably thinking, I can't do that. They're going to catch me. This is silly. This is stupid. No, they're going to catch me. You've all done this before. A little child sitting on the floor crying. They just fell down. They skinned their knees, something like that. And you put on that face, and you get down with them, and you say, oh, my gosh, I'm so sorry. No wonder you're crying. It makes perfect sense because you tripped and fell. Well, how would it be if we went and got some ice cream? Wouldn't that be great? Come on, let's go. We got down into rapport and we brought them back with us, right? So again, right now you're having two reactions. Oh, I love this, or oh, this is the stupidest thing ever. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to do. Give it a go. Give it a go today. See how powerful this is. Practice over and over with everyone and start to internalize it. I expect to see all of you being very uncomfortable today using these techniques with each other. See what happens. And then maybe ask a question, they'll ask a question like, how is the market? Now, of course, the goal is to connect with people and turn them into a database member who you'll stay connected with. And this is only a small part of communication. So as you go about the rest of your day today, practice acknowledging and validating. Practice asking powerful questions that give you a peek into that person's internal representation and build rapport through your body language. Many of you may be familiar with Susan Scott, the author of Fierce Conversations. And in her book, Susan reminds us the conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. Susan's point is this, it's simple. If the conversation stops, the possibilities within that relationship stop too. And as we wrap up today, remember this. You are creative, you are resourceful, you are whole. You have everything you need to be your powerful self. Get out there and never, ever talk to a stranger again. Thank you. Thank you.